last segment. Rob Manfred going, he is no longer a threat to the league when talking about Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson coming off of the ban list and now eligible for the Hall of Fame. Shoeless Joe Jackson, who was rigging it, who wasn't even a part of the rigging in the Black Sox scandal, but was a part of it in 1920. In 1919, when the Black Sox let the Reds win that series, Shoeless Joe Jackson was hardly even involved. But since he was the Hall of Fame player on the team, he is the one who gets burned. And then Pete Rose, who didn't even bet on the team to lose games, didn't throw any shave any points, and the actual extent of his gambling, I guess, is a little unknown. But we knew he had a gambling problem, and he was on the exemption list. And Bart Giamatti put him on it in late 1989, and then Bart Giamatti drops dead of a heart attack 2 weeks later. And then time and time again, Bud Selig when he was there, Faye Vincent when he was there. Manfred never really did it, but even Selig, Pete, just own up to this a little bit and go at this. Don't die on this hill, because it's going to be hard for us to turn back this decision that Bart Giamatti made. And the last thing he did, basically, as the commissioner of the MLB, this is going to be a hard thing to overturn. Bud Selig basically saying that to Pete Rose. And Pete Rose, for years, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. That was basically the extent of why Pete was on the list for as long as he was. But now, waiting until he dies, when he died 9 months ago, waiting until he dies and then honoring him after, you're walking back on the principle that that the MLB, so in a patronizing effect, prides themselves on. That we are the ultimate Hall of Fame. It is impossible to get in. You have to be great off the field, on the field. No funny business, consistent statistics, winning. And then all of a sudden, when Pete Rose, who was the most clear-cut Hall of Fame player that you could find, waiting until he is dead. I know Mike said, at least he's in.
It's the way I
look
look
at it. But the problem is, at least he's in. He doesn't even get to reap the benefit. What good, other than Pete Rose being in, does that to Mike Rizzo and Colin Russo? What good does that do anybody? To Pete Rose's family? Really? Pete is the one who should be honored when getting into the Hall of Fame. Either he's in or he's not. Stick to your word. You can't go other side. Listen, I get it, but the way I look at this is if you're going to have some sense of integrity with it, he mentions the integrity of the game. If you want to live and die by the integrity of the game, it doesn't matter about serving a lifetime ban.
I agree. And Colin, I think the integrity of the game was compromised more with him being outside of the stadium selling gear and memorabilia.
So what are you going to do?
That's the worst. That's the worst look in my opinion.
When Barry Bonds passes away in however many years, are we going to let him in the Hall of Fame?
All the steroid guys, for that
right?
matter.
Are we going to do that? Is that what the precedent we're setting? Or is it just with the gambling guys? Well, the gambling guys were a threat to the integrity of the game, just like the steroid guys, or in the MLB's words at least, were a threat to the integrity of the game.
Now, here's the question I think when it comes to the guys who allegedly juiced. They're on the ballot right now. They're just not getting votes. So they'd have to reopen.
Good point.
They'd have to reopen the voting process and the ballot process, correct?
Good point. So those guys are not getting in based off the integrity of the game.
Right.
And that's on the writer's perspective.
And Pete's never been on the ballot because he's been banned.
And Pete's been banned, so he's never been on the ballot. So that's the MLB saying he's an integrity of the game process.
Right.
So now you get the writers on one side saying, well, the steroids threatens the integrity of the game. And then yet most of the writers, at least for the most part, say Pete should be in the Hall of Fame. And then you got the MLB on the other side of things that are allowing these steroid users to be on the ballot. And some of them have even gotten in to be on the ballot. And yet they're saying the integrity of the game is challenged with the gambling. It is such a crossroads that they are at with the league being on the side of anti-gambling, yet they got DraftKings logos on the live streams now.
Correct.
And then the writers saying, well, the juicing was an exploitation of their resources and of the power. They shouldn't be in there. Which is it? Which is it? There's no unison here. There's no conclusive opinion. Don't do it. Don't put him in. He didn't go in during his life, unfortunately, and I think Pete Rose is a Hall of Famer.
We all know he is.
We all know he is. Don't put him in posthumously. I think it's almost a disgrace to his legacy that you're going to put him in after he dies.
I really want God to ask Pete what he thinks. You know what I mean? to ask Pete hey, would you want to and I'm sure someone behind closed doors asked him
I'm
before.
sure he's been asked that before.
I'm sure behind closed doors the subject got brought up. But I stand by what I said, Colin. And listen, I respect your opinion. I completely understand it. Stand on what you believe in. Stand on what you said. Don't be a phony about it. They're definitely being a bit phony-ish on it. But I will be relieved the moment I see the hit king, the hit leader, and one of the best eras of baseball, too. Colin, there were great starting pitchers at that time that Pete Rose was doing his thing. I mean, this was when aces like Nolan Ryan and company would pitch 150 pitches a game. Yeah. Like, I don't know, mate. I just want to see him get in.
There's no doubt in my mind.
I do.
There's no doubt in my mind. But this is about the player. This has nothing to do with the fans. This is such an MLB trying to appease the fans moment. It comes off as inauthentic. It comes off as, well, we're just doing this so the fans can kind of get off our back about it. Not really to honor Pete. Is it really? It's not to honor Pete. Why are you putting him in? Because it's not to honor Pete. Because if it was to honor Pete, you do it when he's live.
Kyle, you had to know this was going to happen, though, right? You had to know that
there was inklings of it happening, but the fact that it actually did, and it was worded in the way that Manfred worded it.
Listen, now he sounds like a phony there. And I've been giving the commissioner his flowers with the pitch clock and the stuff to the game that he's changed.
Quote, obviously. He leads it with obviously. A person no longer with us cannot represent a threat to the integrity of the game. Well, posthumously, they can't represent a threat to the integrity of the game? How does that make any sense? What, he's not there to, rub it in? Pete Rose getting in represents, in your eyes, if you think he's a threat to the integrity of the game, that's your words. If he is such a threat to the integrity of the game, he is a threat when he is dead, too.
Yep.
Because what he stood for still got in.
This is Rob Manfred just trying to wipe his hands clean of the situation. Do you agree? Trying to go, hey, listen, we're doing this. Feel free to vote him as you see, please. The MLB and baseball is done with it.
This is ridiculous.
He doesn't want to your point, he doesn't want to deal with maybe the calls that the office has been getting, the backlash that they've been getting for Pete not getting in from people like me. And I got to be completely honest. I got to own that. I got to own that.
Pete knew this was going to happen. Everybody knew this was going to happen. But I just don't like the way this is coming about.
Yeah, and I never saw Pete Rose play. But from everything my great-grandfather and my grandparents have told me, Pete was the funnest, one of the best and funnest players to watch around. He played the game hard. He's probably more deserving of anyone in the Hall of Fame that there is, Kyle. I think that's the argument people make for Pete Rose. He played hard. Did he maybe bet on the red machine and when he was managing? Possibly. But you look past that, and you mentioned how prominent gambling companies are now. Maybe we're missing it, Kyle. Maybe this is the MLB going, you know what, gambling's in now. We might as well just let the guys who bet on our sport get in it anyway.
And it's funny because they've been so back and forth on it when they announced the Pete Rose rule, when they were talking about these guys can't get elected if they're ever on the ineligible list, and then they changed their ruling. They're back and forth. If it's so much about keeping the integrity, you can't change the guardrails every 5 seconds.
Oh, it changes on a whim. And that's anything, right? I feel like that's really anything when it comes to stuff like this in any sport. I don't really know what's comparable to this in the NBA and the NFL side. I don't think there really is a story comparable to it. But when it comes to guardrails like this, man, they'll change it on a whim. They'll change it on a whim.
I personally think this is a disservice to the legacy of Pete Rose, because this is not what the family's going to accept it on his behalf. Sometimes you can't control it. Sometimes guys die suddenly and that whole thing. People knew Pete Rose was getting up there in age. And you waited until he was dead because he no longer, quote, represents a threat to the integrity of the game.
When this happens, Colin, when he ultimately gets in,
2028.
They got to be real careful about the way they go this year.
I mean, congrats, Pete. We know the words, I can already tell you what the words they're going to say. We know Pete would have been so overjoyed with this decision. Well, gee, if only we had opportunities to get Pete here.
Now, what about the hardball sense, though, Kyle, that Pete played? Isn't there something there?
Totally.
And I'm not on that side.
He didn't admit it. I believe it was in 2004 when his book came out that he finally admitted the gambling stuff, and it started to become a process of getting him back in, but I think the MLB was trying to spite him. But over the last couple years of his life, he was petitioning time and time again to get back into the Hall of Fame. In his last